Most ancient cities claimed descent from heroes and gods because legend like that helps establish authority and identity. So Rome's foundation history is different, brutally different. You know Rome, it's the city that would rule the Mediterranean for 1,000 years, 2,000 years. But in 753 BC, it begins with a murder. The twin brothers, the sons of the god Mars, stood on two different hills overlooking the Tiber River. On one hill, a brother draws the sacred boundary line in the dirt with a wall, and the other brother just leaps over it like it's a joke. Mars just watched. And the brother who leaped over it will die by the other brother's hands. That's fratricide. That violent act explains more about Roman power than any Roman monument or republic law. But here's a question that you need this lesson to help answer. How does a city born in brothers' blood will become a cornerstone of Western civilization? I'm Mr. Hull, and this is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where history reveals truth and wisdom for your journey. We take a classical approach to history, structured, complete, and grounded in what actually matters, which I've been teaching since the 90s, helping students and history buffs and homeschool families understand not just what happened, but why 7 hills of Rome matter. And knowing history helps us flourish. By the end of this lesson, I'll teach you about the twin brothers, sons of the god Mars, and how they established Rome on 7 hills, and the founding history that's fundamentally different from every other ancient civilization. I also want to show you why Rome's scrappy origin, like a mongrel state, was more of a secret weapon than a weakness. And I'll share about Roman citizenship, like how Romulus made an asylum just to add more members to his kingdom. Plus, I've got a fun bonus at the end of this lesson. I've got all this nice drone footage, some exclusive shots of the 7 hills of Rome today, so that you can kind of get oriented and see where all of this actually happened. Kind of like a travel video. Let's begin. The Palatine Hill, let's just drop right in there. That is where we get the word palace. Palace built on the Palatine. And in 753 BC, these boys, I should stop waving this thing around, my broken Lupa statue. But this is the symbol of Rome. You'll see it all over. So the story, and not the story of how it got broken, because it'll be on my desk and kids will pick it up and drop it and break it. And usually I glue the head back on, but I don't know what happened to it this time. This is not a built up place in 753 BC. We are centuries from the Colosseum and the Senate. So that's all coming. But there are 7 hills here on the banks of the Tiber River where these baby boys, the brothers, were discovered by the she-wolf. It's a swampy place, and archaeologists have found really old, like 9th century, 8th century BC, really old holes and channels to drain away these swamps to make these 9 hills really strategic spots right on this Tiber River, the bend in the Tiber River. Even though Palatine Hill is where we get the word palace, this is not anything close. It's a survival camp. They're living in Casa Romuli, the Hut of Romulus. And they know the story, the legend of the founder, Romulus and his twin brother, Remus. They were cast as babies, thrown into the Tiber River. What? They were ordered to be drowned by their wicked great-uncle Amulius. Now, why would Amulius do that? Well, his guards decided, we can't throw babies into the river. We'll put them in a basket. And we'll just leave this basket kind of at the banks. We won't throw them really in the river. And so this is when Lupa, the she-wolf with with a head, but she will find the babies. She will nurse the babies. She will raise the babies. And this image, kind of wild. I mean, like, you know what it means to be raised by wild animals. You're going to have some heroic qualities. And so it is the symbol of Rome, the city, but connects to the feral, wild nature of Rome. And it says that, you know, you have the blood of a predator, of a fighter like Mars. You're pack-oriented. These boys actually had behaviors like pack wild wolves. The boys are rescued by a shepherd and his wife, and they raise these boys. They see the behaviors that they're like wolves. They're fighters. And it takes on the meaning, the neighborhood, Lupa, the neighborhood of this village, Lupanar, supposed to mean wolf's den, the way these boys act. But do you know that the Lupanar, comes to mean brothel? And it carries forward. Why would the legend of the founder of your great empire of the Romans, why would this be preserved? They want you to know that these twin boys are the sons of Mars, the god of war, but they want you to know that they are sons of the street, like mongrels, wild, unlike the Greeks, who are kind of obsessed with pure-bloodedness. Citizenship of their city-state, Rome, starts at the absolute bottom and fights. And it's really not a fairy tale. It's an explanation for what the Romans need. They didn't need nice boys being raised in a warm, loving home with a mother. They needed a king who could fight, who could survive. So put yourselves into this kingdom area. It's not a kingdom yet. Settlements, villages along the banks of the Tiber. You could grow a lot of food here. It's a good place to live. But somebody is starting to organize the place with the drainage of the swamp. Put yourself in these locations and you start to follow these boys. Romulus and Remus are strong leaders. They have a vision. They start building walls and structures, make it more of a settlement, but now the boys are fighting because Romulus says the structure of the walls on the Palatine hill, that is where this first hill of the city should be. But Remus stands on the Aventine hill and says this is the first settlement of the city. Now, what do you do when the brothers can't agree on which hill to start? It's not a vote. They consult the divine. Ius divinum, the divine law. So the augury, which is like the fortune tellers, the augury, we need a sign. And so they get some birds to start flying around. And Remus sees the sign first. He sees 6 vultures circling over the Aventine hill. Vultures, what's a vulture? Vulture is one of Mars' birds. 6 vultures circling over the Aventine. So you know what that means, don't you? You know what's going to happen. But then Romulus sees his sign. 12. 12 vultures are flying over the Palatine hill. Any confusion here? The number 12, very special. So, brothers, in a crisis of authority, does somebody have a solution here? What do you do? The argument turns into a brawl. The brawl turns into a fight to the death. Is it murder? Romulus kills Remus over this fight. But the specific detail really changes the history of the world. Romulus isn't just killing the brother. He's digging a trench. The trench that was discovered by archaeologist Andrea Carradini around 750 BC. A trench with a wall. Archaeological evidence that this was the beginning. And it wasn't just defensive fortification. The pomerium is the sacred legal boundary of the city. Sacred, like it was divinely appointed. This is the line. And the rules of war don't seem to apply here. He's killed his brother. But outside that line, it's still a chaotic area. Remus had been mocking his brother about the line, about the sacred line for this place. And when Remus was killed, Romulus said, "So perish whoever else shall leap over my walls, shall mock the walls, the establishment, the foundation." This was the mortar of what we call the eternal city. Rome is the eternal city. And it's wet with the blood of Remus. So I don't know how you feel about that. It is an unsettling story. But this establishes an absolute authority in Romulus and its law. That nobody can cross the sacred line or mock the law. They'll be killed. But Romulus has some new problems coming on. He has now established the city, the hill, the Palatine, the wall. He needs people to rule. A city of walls without citizens. Yeah. So he does something that no Greek city would have ever dreamed of doing. He takes the neighboring hill, the Capitoline hill, Capitoline. Do you like these names so far? Palatine for palace, Capitoline for capital. And Romulus opens the asylum. It's called the asylum. It's located between the two groves and sends out a signal. Hey, are you a debtor? Come to the asylum. Are you a criminal running from justice? Come to the asylum. Are you an escaped slave? Come to the asylum. Oh, well, that's interesting. As Romulus says, you will be washed clean by coming to the asylum, and you will be rebranded as a Roman citizen. Wow. This is actually a secret weapon of the Roman state that will carry on into so many lessons in the future. To be a Roman citizen. Think about the Spartan lesson. Do you remember lesson 27? When we saw how Spartans practiced a very strict definition of what a true Spartan is. And, kind of the same with the Athenians of being part of the tribes. This is very different. Rome is going in an opposite direction. Romulus is building a machine that's going to start to absorb the world into some buy-in. In just our recent lessons, as we saw Alexander the Great and then his successors, lessons 41, 42, they were complaining. It was King Philip V of Macedon complaining in the year 214 BC that this is like a rival. Like the Hellenistic age, that was supposed to be Alexander's legacy in this huge empire. And we've got competition as Rome rises. Something that the Hellenistic successors weren't doing. And the Romans were even freeing slaves and making them into Roman citizens. So it was realized why Rome could lose battle after battle, but never seems to run out of loyal troops. Rome was still struggling and rising up. But let's get back to Romulus and the asylum. This was not attracting women. It was men who were coming in. So without the women, no next generation, no wives. So we've got a little problem to solve here. So what do you do when you've got so many men loyal to Romulus and this new Rome that is a kingdom now? He's king. He needs marriages. He needs women. Let's go to the neighboring tribes. And he organizes the connubium, the legal right of intermarriage. The neighbors are looking at the city of thieves. Rome is no, founded by fratricides. This is crazy. They refuse. Romulus comes back in violence this time and invades the Sabine tribes and kind of crashes the party at a religious festival and kind of very abrupt in this famous scene called the Rape of the Sabines, kind of an abduction. But what twist happens because of this? Sabine men return to fight, but the women intervene. They say, they come onto the battlefield. They say, no, we will not be orphans. We don't want to be widows. We want to proceed with this intermarriage. It's kind of a political revolution because the Sabine king, Titus Tatius, he doesn't only sign the treaty, he joins Romulus on the throne. The two nations now merge into one with two leaders, and they've got peace. They've got a bigger kingdom now. This moment will be pointed to. Defining moments for the Romans. Emperor Claudius looks back in history in the year 48 AD, and he says, right then, on that very same day, he turned enemies into citizens. This is the engine of the empire. The citizenship, the assimilation. Whether it's coercion, join us or die. But if you join us, you can become us, part of the Romans. So Romulus eventually disappears into the storm. Legend says he became the god Quirinius. Oh. History suggests he might have been assassinated by his own senators during that thunderstorm, an actual storm. But he has left behind the structure, the foundation of the state. He created the Senate from Senax, the fathers, the fatherly rulers, the old rulers. He left his Titus, the curved staff used for the augury, the fortune telling. He left the most important, powerful, sometimes terrifying symbol of all, the fasces, symbol of power, and that bundle of rods tied together with that leather thong sticking out with a single bladed axe. The rods represent the power to scourge and beat. The axe represents the power to behead. This is a violent symbol, but it was used and used again, even by Mussolini, the fascist ruler of Italy in the time of World War II. It symbolizes that the many are stronger when they are bound together as one, as a symbol of unity, but it's also a threat. After Romulus, 6 more kings will rule Rome. Some are great, like Numa Pompilius, who established the Temple of Vesta, and important culture. Numa gave us the Ancilia, the 12 sacred shields that guaranteed the safety of the empire. 12. There's the number 12 again. Get used to it. But the system is not perfect. Absolute power could eventually corrupt in these kings. By 534 BC, Tarquinius Superbus, like that word, superbus, Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud. He is the last of the Etruscan kings, the last of the kings. That will end the phase of the kings in 509 BC. So how will they do power? An unspeakable event by the king's son, Sextus Tarquinius. He violated Lucretia. Lucretia is just unable to live with the violation, the shame. She committed suicide in front of her family, and her death really triggered an explosion and an end to the kings because a man named Brutus pulls the knife from her chest And Brutus swears an oath, neither Tarquin nor any other shall be king in Rome. This is the birth of something not a monarchy. What do you have? The birth of res publica. Res publica, the Latin for a matter of the people. It's the republic. Republic. The word rex is king, and that becomes a curse word. The Roman language, the Latin language. It's a good thing my mom gave me my Latin dictionary so that I could look up the word rex and many other Latin words. It'll be an important part of our language. Western civilization has adopted so much from the language. But 500 years after this, when we get to the story of Julius Caesar, I hope you remember this, because you'll want some proof about the way people hated the idea of king, because of Lucretia, because of the violation, because of the republic being a better way for the people, for the public to rule and have authority. So the Romans got rid of the kings, but they don't get rid of Lupa. That's still a symbol. They keep the fight, the military, the expansion, adding more people. In fact, that idea of two rulers, kind of co-rulers, the Roman Republic will have two consuls, kind of like having two co-presidents in a way. And we'll get to Roman government. It's really quite impressive and complex, but we've covered quite a lot today, from fratricide and the killing of Remus and the struggles of the early kingdom on the seven hills of Rome. Now, the promised bonus section, I've got these drone clips of Palatine is what we're looking at head on, looking above the Colosseum. It's not built until way later. It opens in the year 80, so we'll ignore the Colosseum now. Well, we can use it as a reference point, but the Palatine Hill above the Roman Forum. You can imagine, now if we spin around, we can imagine the original Romulus. This was his strategic hill. And the Esquiline Hill is behind the Colosseum. The Caelian Hill is to the right. So the Colosseum can be our reference point because it's in the valley between Esquiline and Palatine and the Caelian Hill. And then the Roman Forum is also in the valley down there. So this is a good way to imagine Romulus, imagine the ancient Romans in the Forum and building their palaces. Now, this hazy clip that I have next, it's got a good angle. So now we have Palatine Hill on the right and a good view of the structures of the Roman Forum. Now, Palatine's on the left. You can imagine palaces. Palatine, this is where we get the word palace. And in these palaces, the rulers would look out on the Circus Maximus, which was the empty field there on the right. Here we have the Capitoline Hill. As we pivot to the right, away from that Circus Maximus, the Roman Forum in that valley, Capitoline Hill, Capitol Hill. Between the Palatine and the Capitol Hill is the Roman Forum. Now, the Palatine Hill's behind us. We can see the Aventine Hill. That was the population center. That's a bath complex. Roman baths are quite the thing. And the Aventine Hill is one of the more densely populated areas. Now, this next, the view across the Tiber River to not one of the seven original hills of Rome, but now it the most famous, the Vatican Hill, because Vatican City is the world's smallest country. It is the seat of the Roman Catholic Church, and spectacular St. Peter's there. So We spin for our final view 180 degrees. And once again, Palatine's in the middle, Capitoline to the left, Aventine to the right. This is where it all began, where the brothers fought. The cost was the death, the blood of Remus. It's how civilizations start. It shows us how expensive it is to establish civilization. Civilization is difficult. It's Rome that's pursuing the truth of their original purpose. But is Rome good? And if it's all doing what it needs to be doing, does Rome deliver beauty? It does last. The foundation of people power, the res publica, it does carry on for hundreds and hundreds of years, 1,000 years, even 2,000 years. We will get to all of that. But Rome does prove you can build a massive and inclusive kind of society and bond people together like the Fasces. But there is still struggle and crisis. And if you know some Roman history, if you know Julius Caesar, you know that this society built on violence. And if Mars is behind all of this, there's going to be a big struggle to find peace. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history. And that includes your history, some classical truth for your journey, because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.